On June 9, 2006, the news broke. According to Palestinian sources, an Israeli shell had killed 7 people from the same family and wounded 30 at a beach in Gaza. Palestinian sources initially blamed artillery shells from an Israeli gunboat, then revised their accusation and claimed it was a 155-millimeter howitzer shell. Zakaria Abu Harbid, a cameraman from Ramatan News Agency, arrived at the scene about a half an hour later while the last bodies were being removed and filmed approximately 8 minutes of rushes. His pictures of a grieving Huda Ghalia went around the world in minutes. Global outrage. Palestinian cries for vengeance.
Revenge, revenge, and destroy Israel, destroy America.
Hamas terminated its Hudna, the ceasefire, and the summer war of 2006 began. This was a classic lethal narrative, a story that inspires pity for the Palestinian victims, incites hatred of violent Israelis, and provokes Palestinian men of honor to violence. But how accurate is this narrative? There is no doubt that these people are dead, and shrapnel Israeli doctors removed from the surviving wounded confirms that these people were victims of a blast. But none of the evidence supports the critical accusation that an Israeli shell killed these people. Indeed, the shrapnel Israeli doctors removed did not come from an Israeli shell. Let's examine the scene of the alleged crime. When we look closely at the scene on the beach, there is no evidence of an explosion from an artillery shell. There is no apparent crater at the site of the explosion, nor any physical evidence of so powerful a blast. On the contrary, the evidence strongly suggests a low-intensity explosion in which even the dead bodies were relatively undamaged. This corroborates the findings of the Israeli investigation, which concluded categorically that no Israeli shell was fired in that direction at that time. This conclusion deserves credence. We know that when the evidence of their own investigations indicate Israeli fault, they admit it publicly and apologize for the loss of Arab civilian lives as if it were friendly fire. Could this location have been manipulated to tell the story of family, day out at the beach, massacred by Israeli shells? In short, could we be dealing with a staged Hollywood production whose job is to turn any Palestinian tragedy into an assault on the viewer's emotions and blacken Israel and world opinion? Do Harbid's rushes contain evidence of staging? Why, for example, are these men throwing around the family's belongings? Are they rearranging things that should have been flattened by so powerful a blast? The key images in this sequence concern Huda Ghalia, the 10-year-old daughter who lost 7 members of her family that day. How was her grief captured so poignantly by a cameraman who arrived so late at the scene? In an interview, Harbid claimed, "When I arrived at the beach, it was full of dead bodies. I saw Huda Ghalia running between her dead family till she arrived at her father's dead body, crying, 'Father, Father.' She looked at me and shouted loudly, 'Film, film.' At this moment, I recognized what a big humanistic message I am committed to deliver to the whole world with my small camera." Harbid had commented earlier to a German reporter, "She asked me to film her. She wanted to be seen with her father to show the world the crimes of Israel." Keeping this in mind, let's look again. Here we see Huda standing still as she watches the last corpse of her family being taken away. She may be in shock, she may be waiting. She looks at the cameraman. She then begins to run, and the cameraman tracks her. She throws herself into the sand several yards from her father's body. By her father, she cries out, but curiously, the cameraman moves away from her tragic tears to film artifacts lying on the beach. And rearrange possessions? A Palestinian journalist commented, "No one who saw her tragedy could remain unmoved and prevent their eyes from shedding a tear. But here she sits alone by her father's side, and these people walk by ignoring her presence and certainly do not comfort her. And she leaves alone while her father still lies in the sand." Huda herself does not seem to have shed any tears while being filmed that day. Later she did. But overall, her tearless eyes are for the cameras. And what's going on here? A man lies beside the dead father, sobbing loudly. He is Huda's brother, Aham, the only one not injured in the blast. He claimed to journalists that the missile landed in the middle of where we were. My father was behind me and I saw his stomach cut open with intestines hanging out. He died in my arms. But then, how did the mortally injured father get from the site of the explosion to the sand dunes 20 yards away? And where is the blood on Aham's clothing? Here is Aham earlier, directing the removal of his family's bodies. He walks right by his sister Huda. Here, he walks calmly towards his father's body. Now he's lying by his father's side, and as the camera approaches, he begins to sob uncontrollably. The others walk him away. Given the cameraman's open commitment to framing the scene according to his big humanistic message, his readiness to alter the evidence, the ways his own footage contradicts Aham's testimony, and Huda's desire to have her grief filmed, what are we to make of both Huda and Aham's behavior? Is Huda especially passionate when she knows the camera is on her? Was her brother trying to claim some of the spotlight for himself? To what extent did the cameraman and the camera embellish the mood? Let's do a thought experiment. What if this unfortunate family were killed by a Palestinian mine or booby trap, planted at the beach to prevent Israeli naval commandos from coming ashore as they had, only recently? But would not the Palestinians who planted these booby traps have warned bathers of the danger? Would they allow families to play at such a site? Experience suggests an unhappy answer. Palestinian militants show no concern for the safety of their own people. For example, on September 23, 2005, Hamas paraded live explosives at a celebration of Israel's evacuation of Gaza. The bombs exploded amidst a group of children, killing 15 people and injuring dozens. Hamas tried to blame Israel, but this time the media did not swallow the proffered bait. In the Gaza beach case, however, the media immediately and unquestioningly accepted Palestinian accusations.
This report includes graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised.
This girl had been having a picnic with family members when artillery shells fired from an Israeli gunboat off the coast hit the sand.
When the gunboat explanation failed, Palestinians claimed, with the help from a Human Rights Watch specialist, that
the family members were killed by 155-millimeter howitzer shell.
No material evidence exists to support this claim. What if Hamas really were to blame for booby-trapping the area? This would explain why the familiar crowds are absent from the scene. So are Palestinian officials. It would explain why Palestinian doctors removed all shrapnel from the wounded before sending them to Israeli hospitals for treatment, at risk to the lives of the children involved. What would this child's grief then mean to the viewer in light of this new narrative? What would we think of the exploitation of this girl by those very authorities responsible for her family's death? What would the Western media's immediate acceptance of what Palestinian sources told them tell us about their credulity? And how much do such failures by our news media contribute to Palestinian hatreds? What do we really know about the forces that bring war to this tragic region of the world?